That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And this is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before, more than a century ago. But the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. They just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to.
Our opening clip featured President Biden's farewell address to American democracy. This speech would have been a fitting way to begin his presidency, just as Garland should have appointed a special prosecutor for January 6th from the very start. Now, oligarch Elon Musk is threatening to arrest democratically elected mayors who refuse to obey. Who does that? Russia does that. Kings, emperors. Following Biden's remarks, where he also discussed America's boiling disinformation crisis that helped return Trump to power, searches for the word oligarchy shot up, including the question, what's an oligarchy? The Americans who either voted for Trump or didn't bother to vote at all are about to learn the answer. Maybe this will finally bring change. Americans have united, setting aside their differences to rally, for instance, behind the claims adjuster assassin, who is alleged to be Luigi Mangione. I still have my doubts, and I did a whole episode on it. I'll link to it in the show notes. That support will never go away, no matter how hard they threaten us or try to threaten us. It was recently reported that United Healthcare stole $7.3 billion from cancer patients, sometimes charging up to 1,000% of the price of the actual drug. As the great Ursula Le Guin wrote, we live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. But so did the divine right of kings. We're up against deeply insecure men. The world's richest man in the world, Elon Musk, just got caught hiring an expert gamer to impersonate him. The fake Musk became one of the top players in the world for the game Path of Exile 2. When Musk attempted to prove he was the one playing, he accidentally, permanently killed his character, confirming his utter incompetence and deep insecurities. I want to repeat this for everyone. The richest man in the world really, really wants to be a gamer, but he can't. He also thinks he can buy his way into everything, including the White House, which he'll be moving into with his own office in the West Wing. It's also been shared that Musk lost a bet to philosopher and neuroscientist Sam Harris that there would only be a couple tens of thousands of COVID cases. That is what Musk bet on, that COVID would just be a couple tens of thousands, 30,000 cases, no big deal. And that's cases, not deaths. This is who we're up against. Deeply insecure idiots who need their immense wealth that they were born into and power to overcompensate for their stupidity. And again, horrible insecurities that they live with day in and day out. Musk was born into his wealth and bought his way into Tesla. He did not invent it. No, he is not the Nikola Tesla of our time. He is the trust fund man-child mascot of America's income inequality crisis that's only going to get worse now under Trump. So if you need a place to take a break and for a moment forget about these assholes, prove your own game skills, chances are you're infinitely better than Musk. Join us for Gaslit Nation Board Game Night on Friday, February 7th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I will be there. The Zoom link will be shared on our Patreon, so be sure to sign up at patreon.com/gaslit. Don't miss out. Discounted annual memberships are available. All right, everyone, you can probably feel the storm clouds closing in wherever you live in the world. It's not a great feeling, especially as the crises we're facing are only going to compound under the fire hose of chaos and corruption that's coming, deliberately designed to overwhelm us and weaken our ability to process it all, and most importantly, do anything about it. Americans are collectively going into a freeze response, a natural bodily response to danger where a person freezes in reaction to a threat. We freeze, unable to act. That's what's happening to many of us, I've noticed. One sign of this is that you hardly see any mention of the People's March happening this Saturday, January 18th, in so many cities across the US. That's what the organizers say on their website, but you hardly hear anything about it organically, virally on social media. Maybe it's because the oligarchs are suppressing it. I don't know. I'll be there in Washington, D.C. I strongly encourage you to break out of your own freeze response and despair if that's how you're feeling, and find a People's March near you. I'll link to the map on how to find one in the show notes for this episode. If you're in Washington, D.C. and want to join me, I'll post a meeting location in the victory chat soon, including again on the morning of the march, so we can try to meet up in person. It might be a madhouse. Hopefully, I'm hoping there's lots of people there, or it just might be, it might be easy to find each other. Unfortunately, I hope it's hard. I hope it's an overwhelming crush of people, and everyone's excited, and there's lots of funny, creative signs and costumes, and the Proud Boys are, secretly making out with each other in dark alleys, forgetting to harass us because they're all secretly homophobic, self-hating because of that's how they were raised. That's my fantasy for the People's March. Okay, to my DC listeners, I really hope to see you there. Again, I'm going to be sharing my whereabouts in our victory chat on Patreon. I will be there. I will be there. I'm going to have a grand old time. It's going to be great. If you live in a Republican hostage state like Florida, let's say, where Ron DeSantis is leading the race to be the Orban of all the states, and he's turned Florida into like a wannabe Hungary. Gaslit Nation is organizing state captains in our Patreon community who can help us unite listeners in those so-called red states and together create some good trouble. We have captains so far for Florida and Indiana and are looking for more in states like Texas, Ohio, and Missouri, and far too many states to list. If you want to be a state captain, reach out to me over Patreon. If you live in a Republican hostage state and want to be connected to Gaslit Nation listeners in your state, again, reach out to me over Patreon at patreon.com/gaslit. You can follow the show there for free, or sign up for a free trial, or get a discounted annual membership. If you're already a member, you can give the gift of Gaslit Nation, especially for a loved one in a Republican hostage state. We're going to plant seeds of change together, just like generations before us that had to face off with the dark, dumb, insecure children of fascism. Okay. Finally, we're excited to launch the Gaslit Nation Book Club. Our first discussion will focus on two powerful works: Matthew Ward's translation of Albert Camus' The Stranger and Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. These are short books. They're deeply powerful. There's a lot to process. That's why we're doing two at the same time, because they're not very long and they complement each other. One is nonfiction, one is a fiction, but they both are saying the same thing, essentially. These books deeply explore the emotional truths behind our nation's apathy, crisis, and fascist threats that very much mirror what Europeans were going through in the 30s and 40s. And now here we are up against Nazis again, except this time America officially, as of Inauguration Day this Monday, will be on the side of the Nazis. Join us for the book club conversations about those two books at our Monday Salon on February 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And again, we're having Gaslit Nation salons over Zoom every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, as well as Martin Luther King Jr. Day this Monday, which is also the day where the son of a KKK member, likely because Fred Trump was arrested at a KKK rally in New York City, he's going to be sworn in. Yes, we understand the painful irony of it, but this is America's history. All progress for vulnerable groups, non-white people and women, have been met throughout American history with white rage backlash. That is the story of America. It goes back centuries. This is just the latest ugly, smug, orange face of it. All right. And so in some ways it's right on time. It's obviously it's not normal. We don't accept it. They wouldn't be doing this if we weren't making such incredible progress and normalizing our very humanity. That's what they can't stand. And so in so many ways we are sand all over them at their beach picnic. Okay, we are the sand. We're getting into everything, right? Because our progress is just going to grow and grow and grow. These rights that we're used to, or they can't put this not they're stuck with us. Okay, they're stuck with white people marrying non-white people. They're stuck with gay people raising beautiful kids. They're stuck with trans people existing. They're stuck with this, and it's just going to get worse for them as we all continue to shine our light. I promise you, our progress is a mighty wave that is drowning out their bullshit. That is why they have to cheat and steal so hard and align with violent, mass murdering dictatorships like Russia to get to where they are, to try to lock us in a cage. But remember, Trump has one of the lowest margins of victory in a questionable election in all of American history. And I want to say there's more of us than there are them, because the analyses, the reporting that's coming out is that so many Democrats stayed home. So many Democrats, Biden Democrats from 2020, could not bring themselves to vote for Biden. Gaza was one of the main answers, of course, as we've long warned on this show. And so now here we are. But so again, I want to just confidently point out there are more of us than there are them. And the oligarchs polluting our White House are about to find out how fickle their base of supporters, their angry base of supporters can be when they start going after forced immigration on their friends and family or their favorite workers, and also tanking the economy or whatever, all the stuff they plan to do, taking away their Social Security, their Medicare. If they mess with the people, it's going to be guillotine time. Their supporters that they've cultivated are the ones that resort to violence. Okay. And if they piss those people off, Luigi Mangione is going to look like a normie. Okay. And so, they're in a precarious situation. And plus, they've got their own ego wars with ugly racist Steve Bannon going after not as ugly racist Elon Musk. They're having like a big old clan war or whatever. And so there's a lot working for us. Their chaos, their egos, their stupidity. It's not over yet for us, America. That's what I want to tell you. It's not over for us yet. So don't lose hope. Show up to a People's March. You will feel so much better that you did. Now, as I've been warning for years, we're living through World War III. This is what it looks like. The Russian intelligence operation that helped bring Trump to power, exploiting America's deeply ingrained racism and sexism, is the same force that took over the country of Georgia and nearly turned Ukraine into a dictatorship under Yanukovych. While the Russians may now face competition, with Trump raking in money from American corporations and oligarchs like Bezos and Zuckerberg, he continues to repay the Kremlin in kind. One of the most stomach churning examples is how MAGA Mike Johnson, Trump's loyal servant, replaced Ohio Rep. Mike Turner, a staunch Republican supporter of Ukraine, as the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, with Representative Rick Crawford of Arkansas, who voted against Ukraine aid last year when MAGA Mike Johnson deliberately held it up for 6 critical months, giving Russia the advantage on the battlefield. Now, this sends a clear message. If Great Britain, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Turkey, and other allies of Ukraine don't expand their support for Ukraine and become more creative, including for sanctioning Russia, Russia will win and then set its sights on Poland and the Baltic states and further politically capture once sovereign nations using the golden handcuffs of corruption, like the Russians did in the US with MAGA and Georgia Dream in Georgia. Russia won't stop unless it is stopped. Russia wants its Soviet Union back. And just like Musk yearns for apartheid, they are determined to reclaim what they've lost. This is where we are. Keir Starmer was in Kiev this week, signing a 100-year alliance with Ukraine and pledging further security support as a Russian drone strike came dangerously close to killing him. There was a Russian drone strike in Kiev, very close to a prime minister. What will the world do when a world leader visiting Kiev is killed? That almost happened this week. There are reports that French and British leaders are now in talks about sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine, a move that is long overdue. In this week's Gaslit Nation bonus show, in honor of some of Ukraine's strongest allies, Great Britain and France, I'll be sharing important lessons for both Ukraine and us here in the US from the legendary French warrior Joan of Arc. One of my favorites. I've loved her since I was a girl. I settled down in Portland, Oregon for a year because a random cul-de-sac in Portland has a gold statue of Joan of Arc that's a replica of the one in the very heart of Paris on the Seine outside the Louvre Museum. She is my mentor. I read the great young adult book, Young Joan, which I highly recommend. All ages can read it. But if you have kids, get them a copy of Young Joan. It made such a big impression on me. It was one of those books that showed me that it's okay to hear voices. It's okay to trust the voices you hear, meaning your inner instinct, your intuition, being guided from within, and being a big old weirdo about it, and being full of confidence in your own instincts. And that was such a guiding light for me growing up. So if you have kids, if you are a big kid like me, read the book Young Joan. Joan of Arc, of course, united her broken and disillusioned people during a time that felt like the world was ending. Europe was devastated by the plague. Traders were selling out their own to the enemy for money and power, just like here at home, and all hope was lost. The people were in a freeze, just like Americans are having their freeze response, so were the French. For years, a prophecy swirling among the French countryside had foretold of a young girl who would rise as a warrior and liberate her people. Then Joan of Arc appeared. Her number one fan centuries later became Mark Twain. Mark Twain, one of my favorites as well. When war hero Ulysses S. Grant, who was a master global hero for what he did in the Civil War, winning the Civil War, and then keeping the country together after Lincoln was assassinated. Grant was such a hero. And yet, in America, this is how broken we are as a country. In America, Grant was swindled out of his life savings by a Ponzi scheme. Who would do that to a hero of the country and the world? An American. Like Americans on Wall Street did that. That is who we are as a country. Trump has always been here. So when Grant was broke, it was Mark Twain who came to his rescue and said, "You need to write down your memoirs of the war." And the only reason why Grant did it with Twain's help was because he wanted to leave money for his family. And so that's why he did this as he was dying. Like he was in immense pain and he wrote it all down. And his memoirs are so warm and funny and captivating and leave such an important record of one of the world's earliest Nazi hunters, because that's what he was in defeating the Confederacy that we're still up against today, the Confederacy of traitors. And so Mark Twain is one of those angels on earth that we were blessed with as a nation. America is a land of demons and angels. I mean, it was built on the largest Native American burial ground of, the largest crime scene in history, which was the genocide of Native Americans that was so massive that it literally changed the temperature of the earth. Now, to hear this week's bonus show, which is made with love for our Patreon community, be sure to subscribe at patreon.com/gaslit. That's patreon.com/gaslit. Discounted annual subscriptions are available. Thank you to everyone who supports the show.